what's going on, guys? War Brothers Collectibles here. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. So with Halloween season approaching, I thought today I'll do something different, and in this video I'm actually going to rank all the Halloween movies in the entire series from my least favourite all the way through to, of course, my number one favourite. Now, I enjoy all the films in the Halloween franchise. As you guys know in this channel, I'm a huge fan of the Halloween series. You know, love Michael Myers. I'm actually wearing my Halloween 5 t-shirt right now as we speak. But I've never actually thought about it properly and ranked all the movies from worst to best, in my own opinion. So I'm going to go ahead and do that today. So this might be a bit of a long video, guys, so grab a snack and let's begin. So number 13 on this list, my least favourite in the entire Halloween series, has got to be Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Now, I watched this a couple of months ago, having not seen it for a good number of years. Now, when it first came out, I was like, oh my god, yeah, it's terrifying, I love it, it's great, but I was probably like 14 at the time when this film came out, so I was much more impressionable with like slasher films and stuff like that at that age. But as part of the series, no, I really don't like this one at all after this time that I've watched it a few months back. You know, I just don't like the story. I think it's kind of silly with the whole white horse subplot thing. Oh, I should have said this at the beginning of the video. This video will contain spoilers if you've not seen any of these films. You know, I dislike what they did with... I love Malcolm McDowell as Dr. Loomis in these two Rob Zombie films. You know, I think he does a great job. But the character of Dr. Loomis in this film is just terrible. It's just complete opposite of what Dr. Loomis should be. You know, he's just a greedy man who just wants money, who's exploiting Michael Myers in the press, to make a book and to make money off this book and stuff like that, and exploiting the murders and things like that. Now, I believe Malcolm McDowell said he would return to do the role if it was completely different and he could do something different with the character, and that's fine. But you know, as Dr. Loomis, Michael Myers' arch nemesis, you know, he doesn't chase Michael Myers down in this movie at all. It's more of Laurie Strode's deal with the aftermath of the murders from the first film and her own collapse, if you will, down into psychosis, or, you know, losing her mind essentially, or something like that. Danielle Harris again is back in this film. Always love Danielle Harris in the Halloween series, so it's nice to see her back. I like Brad Dourif as the Sheriff Brackett, but it's just way over the top in so many places. Like, it's just completely brutal with the killings. You know, it's just completely over the top, like stabbing them again and again and again and again and again, or like smashing someone's face into a mirror like over 5 times. It's just too much. It's just completely brutal and savage. Now, some people might like that, and Michael Myers is meant to be this unstoppable killing machine, but it just doesn't feel like any of the other movies in the franchise. It's just too far out there with the story, with the supernatural, I think, and just way over the top with the violence, and the story is just not very good. And I've only ever seen this as the theatrical version. This is the only one available in the UK as far as I'm aware. I am aware that there is differences in the director's cut, of course. The film plays out differently, different scenes, different ending, but this is just the theatrical version. I will throw this film on every now and again, but honestly, it's not very often that I will choose to actually, oh my god, yes, I want to watch Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. So this ranks as my least favourite in the entire series. Number 12 on this list is Rob Zombie's Halloween. Now, this is the remake or reimagining of the original film from 2007, when Rob Zombie took the helm of the franchise after a long gap between Halloween Resurrection and this film. Now, this is the uncut director's cut. This is the only version available in the UK, I think, and there's no option on the disc to watch the theatrical cut. But the theatrical version does play when it comes on Netflix, and I do prefer the theatrical cut over this director's cut. Just because it's a director's cut doesn't automatically mean it's going to be better. It's just the director gets his chance to show his complete vision of what he originally intended. And I used to really like this film. This is the film I used to watch all the time when I was a teenager. I got this film for one of my birthdays, and I used to watch this one more than any other film in the franchise. But as I've got older, and watched more and more of the older films and became a really big fan of the franchise. This is just number 12 on my list. I just don't. It's okay, like it's enjoyable, it's fine, but again, it's just over the top in so many places, with the violence and the gore and stuff like that. And in this director's cut, there's a really horrible, sadistic rape scene of a mental inpatient, and I have to fast forward it. I cannot watch it. It's just absolutely horrible. It's just too far. I mean, it's the mind of Rob Zombie, but I like Rob Zombie as a filmmaker. You know, I love Lords of Salem, House of a Thousand Corpses, and things like that. But for a Halloween movie, I just think some of his ideas that he does, it's just too much even for me. That whole disgusting rape scene is absolutely vile, and I always have to skip through that. I cannot watch it. Um, the first half of this movie is Michael Myers as a child, and of course he comes from an abusive family and has an abusive, not stepdad, but this man that's living in the house with them, his mum, his older sister. Um, there's so much swearing and it's just unbelievable. There's just completely over the top with the violence and the swearing. Now the whole opening act is okay, showing the young Michael Myers and his eventual incarceration in Smith Grove, and you get to see another side of Dr. Loomis, more in depth about him counseling Michael Myers as a child. All that is truly fascinating, but it just too goes too far. It's just too over the top with certain things. And then about 45 minutes into the film, it's just essentially a remake of John Carpenter's original classic, but to far less effect, I think. The scenes are just there with no sort of like tension, or you're just like, oh, they're just recreating scenes from the original, but there's no kind of like anything behind them, if that makes sense. And it just goes on too long, I think. Like, there's an ending where Dr. Loomis shoots him down and he's like, yes, I do believe it was the boogeyman. But that's like the false ending. And then there's one final chase, in this version anyway, of, chasing Laurie back in the house. And then she hides in the attic and then falls down. And then Michael runs at her and pushes them both out the window. And then she shoots him point blank in the face. It just drags on for too long, I think. It should have ended the way the original film ended. Was it the boogeyman? Yes, I do believe it was. That's the way this film should have ended. But it is a reimagining, of course, of the original film, so it's bound to do something different. And that's okay. But yeah, just overall, guys, I just don't really watch this one anymore. It's number 12 on this list. And that's Rob Zombie's Halloween 2007, the remake slash reimagining of the original. Number 11 is Halloween Kills. Now, I saw all the Jason Blum films in the cinema, the David Gordon Green films, sorry. It was Blumhouse that produced these films. I saw the entire trilogy in the cinema, and the first one was really good. That's, of course, on this list. It's quite one of my favourite films. But Halloween Kills, to me, it suffers too much from just being the middle chapter of a trilogy, so it can't really do much with the story that's too dramatic, if you will. Laurie Strode is just pretty much in a hospital for the entire movie, doesn't really have much to do, which is a shame because it's, of course, great to see Jamie Lee Curtis back for these films. It's more about Tommy Doyle and Lindsay and the whole town of Haddonfield, having enough of Michael Myers, taking it in their own hands to hunt him down, and then the whole town descends into madness, and it's like, the whole town becomes evil and completely out of control, just like Michael is, and things like that. That's kind of interesting. And there is some flashbacks to the original film, 1978, and they're done incredibly well. They look awesome. And you've got an actor playing Dr. Loomis, which is pretty cool. I think he does a fine job of recreating the look and sound of Donald Pleasance. So those flashback scenes are a really welcome addition, and they do really look great. But again, this is another one that just kind of goes crazy and over the top with the violence. And even Malek Akkad said, this film holds nothing back. It's just completely crazy. It's almost chaotic in a way. The story and the violence and things like that. But just the fact that it just suffers too much from not really having much to do. It's just waiting for the third concluding chapter of a trilogy. So it's just kind of stuck in the middle, and the ending is like, wow, okay, where do we go from here? But it just goes completely over the top. and Halloween Ends, which is the next one, kind of doesn't continue from this one where this one left off. So I don't know, like, it just suffers too much from being the middle chapter of the trilogy, and yeah, I really don't return to this one that much, to be honest, guys. So number 10 on this list, this might shock a lot of people. This is actually Halloween H2O 20 years later. Now, this film is regarded by many to be one of the best in the entire series. Jamie Lee Curtis is back, which is great. It ignores Halloween 4, 5, and 6, and it is a direct sequel to Halloween 2. That's how it was written. But this film, it doesn't really do much for me. It's fine, I suppose. I mean, I do enjoy 4, 5, and 6, but that storyline was kind of exhausted at this point. So I do appreciate the kind of a clean slate and a fresh start, and of course having Jamie Lee Curtis back. She's always great in these movies. So it's really great to see her back. But this film is set in a boarding school. Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode, is the headmistress, and his son is in the school, and it's just about Michael Myers coming back 20 years later to finally get Laurie, who's still his younger sister at this point in these films. In the Blumhouse trilogy, they disregard that thing about Michael and Laurie being brother and sister, but in this film, she's still Michael Myers' younger sister. Michael just appears out of nowhere 20 years later. There's no kind of explanation of like where he's been or how did he track down Laurie Strode. It's just, it just like picks up out of the blue, like, oh, he's back, like, okay. He kills the Marion Chambers, who's the smoking nurse from the original Halloween 1 and 2, who's supposedly been Dr. Loomis's caretaker for the past 20 years. And I think that's how he finds out where Laurie Strode is and things like that. But it just really does nothing for me. It's just about Michael stalking John, which is Laurie Strode's son, in the boarding school, and his friends. And once that job's done, a couple of murders, there's a big battle at the end between Laurie and Michael, which is kind of just underwhelming. Like, it's just kind of a big chase scene. And then eventually there's a climactic thing in a van where she runs him over, and then they go crashing down a cliff. And the ending is good. I appreciate the ending of this film, because it does really definitively end the franchise. That was one of Jamie Lee Curtis's conditions coming back to do this film. I want to end it. I want to kill Michael off, and this film indeed does that. And if this film was to be the last, the ending is rather satisfactory, but it's just all the stuff in the middle, guys. It just doesn't really do anything for me. It doesn't really excite me. I'm not really excited by the plot. Or Dr. Loomis is of course missing in this film because Donald Pleasant passed away shortly after Halloween 6 in 1995. So Jamie Lee Curtis is a great welcome return, but this film just nothing for me. Even the cast, like LL Cool J, Josh Hartnett, things like that. I don't know. I just doesn't really do anything for me. Next on this list is another controversial choice. So I actually prefer Halloween Resurrection to Halloween H2O, just in the fact that I find the story more exciting and more entertaining, with the whole reality TV show thing in the Michael Myers house, which I just think is a really cool idea. All the actors in the film, they're all playing college students. They're all wearing like cameras and headsets, and it films various things like from a POV kind of thing, which is really kind of creepy because it's like almost like a found footage kind of movie. And I think it works really well. Yeah, there's some incredibly silly moments like Busta Rhymes karate kicking Michael Myers out of a window and things like that. There are some silly moments, and the disrespect that they give Jamie Lee Curtis's character in this film. I mean, she'd had enough at this point. She just was like, well, if Michael's not going to die, kill my character off. I've had enough. And she's kind of just disposed of within the first 15 minutes, which is, I don't really like. I wish they would have done something better with that, but honestly, I just think Jamie Lee Curtis had enough at this point. There is another cut of this film, like the work print edition, and it was originally titled Halloween The Homecoming, with some various different kills, some alternate footage, and some different endings, which I have seen, and that is kind of interesting. But at the ending of this film is just total rubbish. It's just another cliffhanger, like, oh, Michael's awake again. roll on the credits, wait for the next film. You know, the ending is very poor, but you know, it's quite exciting. It's really creepy atmosphere in the Michael Myers house with the whole cameras and the reality TV show thing. And I just find it entertaining. Like, it's almost comedic, which I don't necessarily agree with. But if you want to find something in it, guys, and view this as a comedy, you can do that as well. Like, it does go too far with the silliness in places, but I find it entertaining, and we watched it only a few weeks ago, and it's one I return to quite often. I haven't really got any major problems with this. Again, another controversial choice, number 8 on this list, is Halloween Ends. Now, a lot of people regard this as the absolute worst in the franchise. I have to disagree with that. You know, this, to me, it was so fresh. Like, I saw this in the cinema and we came out and I was like, you know what, I really enjoyed this movie, like, because it did something different that we hadn't seen before. You know, you think it's just going to be another Michael Myers, Laurie Strode movie, but it is not. It follows a teenage boy called Corey Cunningham, and it's about him getting involved with Laurie Strode's granddaughter, and you know, he's got his own trouble past of his own. You know, that he was babysitting a young lad one night and something really bad happened, and the young boy ended up dying, and Corey was blamed for the accident, and he was charged with manslaughter, but he wasn't charged, like, he wasn't incarcerated or anything like that, but the whole town kind of like hates him. So it's kind of like Corey Cunningham's story about his turn to darkness and how he gradually loses it, and his delve into insanity and things like that because the way the town has treated him. And it's almost like Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, where like Jason is not the killer in that film. You know, Michael Myers only shows his face like, I think, 45 minutes into this film. And they kind of like team up, and like evil changes shape. That's a theme of this film, where evil changes shape from Michael into Corey, and that's a whole theme of this film. Evil changes shape, which I really enjoy. And it just did something different. I found this film really fresh. The ending is, of course, Laurie versus Michael. That all comes together into one final battle, with Corey and her granddaughter mixed into the whole thing. I think it works really well. You know, there's some great kills and some great moments. And yeah, I'm going to be completely honest. I enjoyed this film. People regard it as the absolute worst. I have to really disagree with that. I enjoyed this film, and this is one that I return to quite regular at the moment. I really enjoy this one. Again, controversial choice, but films are subjective, guys. I enjoy Halloween Ends. Number 7 is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Now, everybody knows that this film does not have Michael Myers in it. This is about a Irish toy maker who is a witch, essentially, from Ireland, and he, you know, dates back to the, you know, the Celtic origins, the sacrificial roots of Halloween, and he puts these like witchcraft things into this. Basically, witchcraft meets the computer age. That was the theme of this film. Using witchcraft, he puts these kind of like microchips into 3 Halloween masks. That's why it's like Halloween 3, because it's like the 3 scary masks: the jack-o'-lantern, the witch, and the ghost. Sorry, the skeleton. So it's about this evil mastermind, this centuries-old witch, wants to kill all the kids on Halloween. For what reason, we don't really know. He's just an evil guy. And it's about this doctor teaming up with the daughter of a shopkeeper who was selling the masks, who's disappeared. And they investigate the toy factory and uncover the sinister plot. And this was going to be a standalone anthology series after Halloween 2. They decided, because Michael Myers, that storyline was kind of done, and they wanted to start fresh with Halloween 3 and make it an anthology series and have a different themed Halloween story each year. Now, on paper, that's a really good idea, and I'm all for that in the future, to be honest. But, you know, audiences at the time couldn't grasp onto the concept, and they were like, well, where's Michael Myers? That sort of thing. But I enjoy it as a standalone, like, scary thriller. You know, it's totally fine. If you just disregard the Halloween 3 and, you know, just call it Season of the Witch and watch it as a standalone film, nothing to do with any other films in the Halloween series, I think you'll find something in it that you'll quite enjoy. You know, it has gained a cult following and a fan base over the years, and it was absolutely hated when it first came out. But since then, you know, people have appreciated it for what it is and what it tries to do. And it's just a shame that the anthology series never really caught on. They had to bring Michael Myers back for the future and the rest of the series. Now, I do believe that the TV series American Horror Story achieved what this film couldn't, because every season of American Horror Story is a different kind of horror theme. It's an asylum, it's a cult, it's a freak show, it's about a coven, things like that. Each season is a different kind of scary theme, which is, of course, what this film would have done with further sequels. So I do believe that American Horror Story achieved what this film couldn't, which is just a shame. I do love American Horror Story, by the way. That's a great series. But yeah, I enjoyed this film, and I'll watch it maybe at least once or twice a year, if I'm honest. I enjoy Halloween 3 for what it is. I appreciate what it tries to do. I love Tom Atkins as Dr. Dan Chalice. I enjoy Halloween 3. Next up on the list is Halloween 2. This is the original Halloween 2, The Nightmare Isn't Over. Now, this is a direct continuation from the first film, literally picking up as soon as the original film ends. So it's very much in the style of the original film. It's almost identically, shot the same lighting, same, camera effects and things like that. And it's a lot of the same crew, actually. So it's pretty much as close you can get to the original film as possible is Halloween 2. Donald Pleasance is back, of course, as Dr. Loomis, and Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis. She is in hospital for pretty much the entire movie, which I know some people don't really like because it's not scary. She's just in hospital, a place where she should be safe. And that is kind of true. Like, there's like nobody else in this hospital, which is kind of weird. But Michael finds out that she's there and goes to get her from his failings of the first movie, while Donald Pleasance is still running around Haddonfield trying to stop him. Donald Pleasance always gives a great performance, and this film is no exception. He is amazing to watch in this movie. I enjoy Halloween 2. It's again, it ups the ante with the kills, increases the gore, which the first film didn't really need or didn't really have any gore. But of course, with the competition since the first Halloween film, this film kind of felt the need to up the ante with the gore and the shock value. So it kind of does that, but it handles it well, in my opinion. I love the musical score on this. It's the same kind of themes, but played differently with different instruments, which is kind of cool. Donald Pleasance, hunting Michael Myers down. It is an enjoyable film. The climactic chase is still as thrilling as the first film. It's not as good as a final chase as the first film, of course, but it's still really exciting and tense. And then the final confrontation with Michael and Dr. Loomis is incredible. If you've not seen it, I won't spoil that. But this film, did definitively end the Michael Myers timeline or storyline. That's why they started fresh with Halloween 3. So it wraps things up, and it is a worthy successor to the original, and it is a great follow-up, as it is a great continuation of the story. Number 5 on this list is Halloween 5. This takes place a year after Halloween 4, following the traumatic events of the fourth film. This is about Michael Myers' niece, Jamie Lloyd, played by the young actress at this time, Danielle Harris. She does a great job as Jamie Lloyd, Michael Myers' niece. I really enjoy watching her in Halloween 4 and 5. I think for such a young actress at the time, she does an amazing job. So this film is like the revenge of Michael Myers. After the beating he took in part 4, he comes back to Haddonfield to try and get his niece, Jamie Lloyd, who's now in a children's hospital. So he goes around Haddonfield, stalking her friends and things like that, and her foster sister's friends. And Dr. Loomis is, of course, back to try and hunt him down, going all over town, hunting him down and things like that. The mask is kind of different in this film. A lot of people don't like the mask of Halloween 5, but I actually think it's pretty cool and it's quite different, and I enjoy it. I like Don Shanks as Michael Myers. He's this just really tall, big guy. He was a stuntman, actually. I think he does a great job as Michael Myers, and I've watched plenty of the making of documentaries on this film, and it's really great to hear about his experiences of the film and the director and things like that. The original opening of this film, delved, into the witchcraft, and it was that brought Michael back to life, with spells and witchcraft, and they put the tattoo on his wrist and things like that. But then Mustafa Akkad didn't like that, so he scrapped that original opening, and that original opening is available on the 4K that you can watch, and it is actually on YouTube. So it's like that witch doctor kind of thing takes care of Michael for the entire year, whereas in the original film it is just this old hermit nurses Michael back to health. But I think the witchcraft that opening would have been more fitting, really, considering where the series goes in part 6. But this film has got some good kills. It is kind of slow. In the middle, it does just kind of slow everything down while he's just stalking Rachel's friends. That's Jamie Lloyd's foster sister, at the farmhouse, and there's just false build-up after false build-up, and prank after prank after prank, and it does get pretty tired. But then the final climactic chase between Jamie Lloyd and Michael in the house is thrilling, and the laundry chute and everything like that, and the confrontation with Dr. Loom is again awesome. The only film this film kind of suffers from is the ending, in my opinion. Spoiler here, guys, it's basically just Michael in a jail cell, and then this man in black that's been mysteriously following Michael around all over town for the entire film breaks him out of jail. So it's another cliffhanger ending, which didn't really need to happen, in my opinion. So that's my only kind of nitpick. It's kind of slow, and the ending I'm not really a fan of. But the chase in the house is really cool. The laundry chute. Donald Pleasance is also great in this film. He's really great to watch as always, and great kills. And Halloween 5 is not as bad as everybody says. I do enjoy Halloween 5. So we're on the final stretch now, guys. This is my 4th favourite of the entire series, Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. This is just the theatrical cut DVD. I have seen the producer's cut many times, and I've got to say I do prefer the producer's cut version over the theatrical. But I have a special place in my heart for this film, because this film was actually one of the first Halloween sequels that I actually saw. The story goes, I think I saw Halloween 1 and 2, and I wanted to watch the rest of the films. At the time, I was ignoring Halloween 3. I only watched that later on. But I actually went shopping to buy Halloween 4, which at that time, it wasn't really readily available in the UK in shops. It is now. But back when I was going to buy it, for some reason, Halloween 4 and 5 were pretty much out of print before they did new editions of it. So I went out to buy Halloween 4, but I ended up coming home with Halloween 6, because that's the only one that I could buy from the shop, and I wanted a Halloween film. So I bought Halloween 6, and I watched it that night. I didn't really know what was going on at the start, because this takes place like 6 years after Halloween 5. So I didn't really know who this Jamie Lloyd character was. I was just watching it for another Halloween film. And I always remember, really, I enjoyed this the first time I ever saw it. And it's one that I returned to many, many times over the years. At the time, I didn't know anything about the producer's cut. So I was like, oh, Donald Pleasance is like barely in it, even though he's got like top billing. He's like barely in this movie. But now I know that a lot of his scenes were cut out for the theatrical cut. It was only a few years after seeing this film and becoming a fan of the theatrical cut that I actually sat down and watched the producer's cut. Of course, you've got a different explanation of the cult and the whole Thorn thing in the producer's cut, and you've got more Donald Pleasance, which is, of course, a good thing. This film went through many reshoots, and because Donald Pleasance sadly passed away after filming the producer's cut, which was going to be the film at that time, and they decided they needed to do some reshoots and change things around. But Donald Pleasance was no longer with us, obviously, so they had to kind of work around that thing with a body double for the scenes that he was going to be in, and they can pretty much change the entire last act of this movie to something completely different. So a lot of this movie doesn't actually make sense when you actually sit down and watch this. It's kind of all over the place. And the editing, is pretty bad, and it's very much like it's just known as like an MTV edition. It's like flashy edits and cuts, and it's like electric guitar theme instead of the piano theme of the producer's cut and all the other films. It tries to be 90s and hip and fancy and flashy and all that. And the Weinsteins produced this, and they were, apart from Scream, I think they're pretty bad with horror back in the day, but they own Dimension Films. at the time. Um, so they were in charge a lot of the production on this film and meddled with it a lot and made a lot of bad decisions, in my opinion. They didn't listen to the writer Daniel Farrens and the long-time producer, of course, Mustafa Akkad, which is a shame. So the theatrical cut, really looking at it, is kind of a mess, but I still enjoy the film for what it is, because it has that special place in my heart that I really enjoyed it back in the day. Um, I do obviously I do prefer the producer's cut, but Halloween 6 is one of my favorites in the series. Great, there's some great kills. I love the camera work. Paul Rudd as well in one of his early roles, and is pretty cool. And any scene that Donald Pleasance is in either version of this film, it's always great and really entertaining to see. Always great to have him in a Halloween movie, and I enjoy Halloween 6. The last three films now of my ranking of these Halloween films. So number 3 on this list is Halloween 2018, which is a requel, really. This takes place directly 40 years, after the original movie. It's pretty much the first film done again. That's why I use the term requel. Laurie Strode is in it 40 years later. She's got a daughter and a granddaughter, and Michael Myers was incarcerated after the events of the first film. He was recaptured by Dr. Loomis and the police department and taken back into custody. And then in this film again, he's being transferred to another asylum for some reason, and doesn't really work out. He breaks out again and returns to Haddonfield to get Laurie Strode, who is not his sister in these films. He's just returning back to kill her for revenge, I suppose, or to get his fixation from 40 years ago of killing Laurie Strode. Great to see Jamie Lee Curtis back 40 years later from the original film. I think she does an amazing job in this movie. This film is stunning to look at. There's one scene where Michael is out in the streets of Haddonfield. It's Halloween night. Kids are out trick or treating, so he's in his mask, and so he kind of blends in with everybody. The Halloween theme kicks in, and it's just one continuous long tracking shot following Michael, making some kills and things like that. And it's just an amazing shot. It's shot incredibly well. It looks gorgeous, and that's probably my favorite shot in this entire movie. The final battle is also exciting. Laurie Strode and Michael Myers have a showdown, which it kind of ends where there didn't need to be a sequel, but of course these days they had to do a trilogy. So this film could have been the last one, in my opinion, because the death scene is quite conclusive. But yeah, I enjoyed this film. It is a requel, so it's pretty much the first film done again 40 years later with changes here and there to update the story. But Halloween 2018 is a great film, so definitely check it out if you're either starting to watch these movies or you are a fan of the series and you want to watch more of them. Halloween 2018, 40 years later as I call it, is a good one. Number 2 on this list is Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Love this movie. I think it's awesome. It's 10 years after the first one. This film was made in 1988 and it was set in 1988. Laurie Strode supposedly has died in a car crash. Michael Myers has been incarcerated for the past 10 years, but again, transferring him to another sanitarium, he breaks out and learns that he has I think she's 8 years old. His 8-year-old niece lives back in Haddonfield with her foster sister and foster parents, played by Daniel Harris. And he breaks out and returns to Haddonfield to kill his niece. Which I know the whole thing about Michael Myers doesn't kill kids. I know that whole controversy, but this is where they did the whole thing where he's got to eliminate all his family members one by one and things like that. So Michael Myers returns to Haddonfield to get his niece. Of course, Donald Pleasance is back, as Dr. Loomis, hunting down Michael, returning to Haddonfield. People don't believe him that Michael is back in town. He has to gain the trust of the Sheriff Meeker, who is really good in this film. I love the character of Sheriff Meeker. And it's about hunting down Michael, and there's actually a mob of hunters, if you will, who remember the killings from 10 years ago, who go out on their own as a lynch mob to try and hunt down Michael, which is pretty cool. Because the police force, Michael deals with the police force, and there is no police force in this movie. I told you there will be spoilers. So Dr. Loomis is trying to get the town to believe him and try and hunt down Michael. There's some great action sequences here. You know, the truck chase at the end is awesome. The whole scene in the house and on the rooftop is thrilling. I believe that they originally wanted to set fire to the house while Jamie and Rachel were climbing out the window and on the roof of the house, and Michael's chasing them on the roof of this house while the whole house goes up in flames. Well, the budget wouldn't allow it, but how awesome would that have been? I can just imagine that, the whole house going up in flames, you know, fire and smoke, and them trying to escape on the roof, and like, where do we go? And then Michael turns up. You know, that would have just been so much better for that scene, in my opinion. But unfortunately, the budget wouldn't allow it. But it is still a thrilling scene. It is kind of cheap, I suppose, that they just go, oh, Michael Myers nearly burned to death, you know, 10 years ago, and Dr. Loomis nearly died. You know, that was a definitive ending. They just kind of like have to explain how both of them characters come back. But I can forgive them for that. You know, it's fine. I just get on with it, and it's, you know, it is a great film. It's really suspenseful, well shot, well made, and the opening title sequence as well is this atmospheric drone of this farmhouse on Halloween with jack-o'-lanterns, and it's just really atmospheric, and it's really well done. Halloween 4 is a great film. It's, as I say, it's my second favourite now in the entire series. No surprise here, guys. Number one is, of course, John Carpenter's Halloween, the original 1978 masterpiece. Now, just a nitpick with this Blu-ray. So this was when it was Halloween 40 years later. So this is advertised as Halloween 40. But so I thought, because it was at the first Blu-ray this became out of print in the UK, but when this was released as like the 40 years of Halloween, I thought this was going to be like a brand new edition and have a load of new content on it. Unfortunately, for some reason, this Blu-ray, you pop it in, and I think it's just a 35th anniversary edition. So they've advertised it on the box, but if you actually pop the disc in, it's like the 35th anniversary edition, which I think is naughty, really, that they did that. They didn't bother to do a 40th anniversary special edition release. But nevertheless, that's just a tiny little nitpick. What can I say about this film? It's one of the first horror movies that, like classic horror movies that I actually ever saw. I did have it on DVD, and then of course when this edition came out on Blu-ray, I had to get it. Of course, I do eventually want to get it on 4K, but that is really hard to find at the moment. So unless they re-release it in a steelbook or another limited edition, I'm really struggling to get that on 4K. But I intend to get it as soon as possible in the near future. You know, classic low budget horror movie, really well done by John Carpenter. Jamie Lee Curtis was an unknown actress at the time, does an amazing job in this movie. Donald Pleasance is great, love the character of Dr. Loomis. I don't want to say too much about the plot because you guys probably know everything about this film if you're watching this video, but it is probably my favourite horror movie of all time, actually. I've actually got a Michael Myers tattoo. Like, I really enjoy Halloween. I try to watch it every year on Halloween night. That's kind of became a tradition. So yeah, Halloween is of course number one on this list. My favourite in the entire series and my favourite horror movie of all time. So this video has gone on for probably way too long, guys, but this was just my rankings of all Halloween movies from my least favourite all the way down to my favourite, which of course is the original film. I guess that was no surprise there. If you enjoyed this video, definitely give this video a thumbs up, and please leave comments down below about what Halloween film you enjoy, which is your favourite in the series, which is your least favourite, and what did you think of my ranking of the entire series. So thanks very much for watching, guys. If you're not subscribed to my channel yet, please give this video a thumbs up, and please consider subscribing to my channel. I really do appreciate all the support, and I will see you guys soon in another video. Take care.